Camilla smiled across the candlelit table, swirling the deep red wine in her glass. The soft glow of the restaurant lights shimmered against her skin, accentuating the effortless elegance she carried so well. Her nails, painted a glossy nude, tapped lightly against the stem of her glass as she gazed at me with the same warmth she had perfected over the years. But I knew the truth. The woman sitting across from me, celebrating our anniversary, was a stranger now. "Happy anniversary, babe," she said, her voice dripping with practiced affection. I returned her smile, my expression carefully composed. "Happy anniversary, darling." If she noticed the slight pause, the almost imperceptible hesitation in my voice, she didn't let it show. Camilla had always been good at lying, not just with words, but with her entire being. The tilt of her head, the way her fingers brushed over the tablecloth absent-mindedly, the soft sigh she exhaled before taking a sip of wine, it was all part of the illusions. But the problem with illusions is that they only work when no one is looking too closely. And I had been looking, watching, waiting. "I got you something special," I said, my tone light, conversational, as though I was merely indulging in the expected pleasantries of the evening. Her eyes lit up with curiosity and something else, anticipation, perhaps. Guilt never once flickered across her face. She leaned in, a delighted smile playing on her lips. "Oh, what is it?" I reached under the table and pulled out a small, carefully wrapped box. The matte black paper was sleek, tied together with a thin silver ribbon. Minimalist. Elegant. Deceptively unassuming. Her fingers ghosted over the top before she chuckled, giving me a coy look. "What is this, Nathan? You know I hate surprises." "Oh, but you love secrets, don't you, Camilla?" I leaned back in my chair, watching as she carefully untied the ribbon. The paper crinkled softly as she peeled it back, her breath catching in her throat as she lifted the lid. And then, silence. I watched as the color drained from her face, her fingers trembling slightly as she picked up the first photograph. Her perfectly curated expression faltered, her lips parting slightly as she flipped through the stack. Photos, receipts, screenshots. A neatly arranged collection of her lies. Camilla's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. Her fingers fumbled as she put the photographs down, as if touching them too long would burn her. I could see it now. The calculations running through her head, the desperate attempt to piece together an explanation, an escape, a way out. She looked up at me, eyes wide, searching for something. Mercy, maybe? Forgiveness? A sign that this was all some elaborate joke? But I only lifted my wine glass, swirled the liquid inside, and took a slow sip. "Still want to celebrate?" I asked, my voice almost amused. Camilla's lips parted, but no words came out. I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The night was just getting started. The restaurant was perfect, intimate, dimly lit, with flickering candlelight casting soft golden hues over white linen tablecloths. A delicate string quartet played in the background, their melodies weaving through the air, creating the illusion of romance. It was the kind of place designed for whispered confessions and stolen glances, where couples celebrated milestones with laughter and overpriced wine. Camilla had chosen it, of course. She always had a taste for the finer things, for the elegant, the extravagant, the expensive. She sat across from me, radiant as always, effortlessly poised. Her dress, black silk draping over her body like water, was chosen carefully, as if she wanted tonight to be perfect, as if she had any control over how the evening would unfold. Her fingers, adorned with the diamond ring I had given her a decade ago, traced lazy circles against the rim of her wine glass. "Happy anniversary, babe," she said, her voice smooth, almost affectionate. I returned her smile, slow and deliberate, allowing just the right amount of warmth to touch my expression. "Happy anniversary, darling." Her eyes flickered with something unreadable. Perhaps anticipation, perhaps guilt, though she was too well practiced to let anything slip. She had mastered the art of deception. The subtle lies, the carefully measured excuses, the way she tucked her phone away a second too quickly whenever I entered the room. She thought she was careful, thought she was untouchable. I let her believe that. She took a sip of wine, her red lips pressing against the glass, leaving the faintest imprint behind. "I can't believe it's been 10 years, she mused, setting the glass down and leaning forward slightly. "Time flies, doesn't it?" "It does." My voice was steady, my hands relaxed, but inside, I felt the dark satisfaction coil in my chest like a silent predator waiting to strike. She smiled, that same practiced smile she had probably flashed at him. At Tyler. The man she thought she could keep in the shadows, the man who had disappeared the moment things started getting complicated. Camilla tilted her head slightly, feigning innocence. "You seem quiet tonight." I exhaled, shaking my head slightly. "Just Thinking, about what? She laughed softly, her fingers reaching out to brush against mine. You're not getting sentimental on me, are you? Something like that. Her nails tapped against the tablecloth, a slight rhythm, like a metronome counting down the seconds to her downfall. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small, matte black box, setting it gently in front of her. I got you something special. Her eyes lit up, a flicker of excitement crossing her face. She loves surprises when she was the one orchestrating them. Nathan, she purred, her fingers grazing the edge of the box. You didn't have to. Go on, I interrupted, gesturing for her to open it. She untied the silver ribbon carefully, peeling back the paper, her hands moving with the same delicate precision she had probably used when sneaking around behind my back. But then her fingers froze. The air between us thickened. The color drained from her face as she lifted the lid, her breath catching in her throat. Inside, neatly stacked, were the pieces of her betrayal. Photos, receipts, screenshots of messages she had thought were buried. A perfectly curated collection of her lies, wrapped up like a gift. For the first time in years, I saw real, raw emotion on her face. Not feigned affection, not forced charm, just pure unfiltered fear. Still want to celebrate, Camilla. Nathan leaned back in his chair, watching the color drain from Camilla's face as she flipped through the damning contents of the box. The restaurant's warm lighting suddenly felt oppressive, casting long shadows across her trembling hands. She picked up a photograph, a grainy shot of her and Tyler at a boutique hotel downtown. The date, stamped in the corner, told him everything he needed to know. Camilla sucked in a sharp breath, her fingers gripping the edges of the picture so tightly that they threatened to crumple. Nathan, this isn't what it looks like, she stammered, lifting her gaze to meet his. Nathan let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head as he took another sip of his wine. Camilla, he said smoothly, setting his glass down with deliberate ease, you and I both know exactly what this is. She swallowed hard, flipping through more evidence. Credit card receipts for expensive dinners she never mentioned, messages exchanged with Tyler that she thought she had deleted, photos taken when she thought no one was watching. The weight of her lies settled on her shoulders like a suffocating cloak, her carefully constructed world crumbling before her eyes. Her breath came in short, uneven gasps. Nathan, please! You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, he interrupted, his voice devoid of emotion. I understand that while I was working late nights, you were sneaking off to be with him. I understand that every time you told me you were meeting a friend for drinks, you were meeting him. I understand that you thought I was too blind, too trusting to ever put the pieces together. Her lip quivered, her hands clenching into fists as she tried to summon the confidence that usually came so easily to her. It was a mistake, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. Nathan raised an eyebrow, his smirk slow and knowing. Didn't mean anything. He reached into his pocket, pulling out another small stack of papers and setting them in front of her. Camilla, these are the receipts for the hotel stays, the weekend getaways, the jewelry he bought you. The same jewelry you hid at the bottom of your vanity thinking I'd never find it? Camilla's mouth opened, then closed again, her face paling. She looked around the restaurant as if searching for an escape route, but there was none. Nathan continued, his voice calm and unwavering. Tell me, Camilla, what exactly about this didn't mean anything? The secret rendezvous, the stolen moments, the lies you fed me night after night? Tears welled in her eyes, but Nathan felt nothing. No sympathy, no remorse, only cold satisfaction. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, her voice trembling. Nathan laughed, shaking his head. That's rich. You didn't want to hurt me, but you did it anyway. Repeatedly. Over and over again. And you thought I'd never find out. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice just enough that only she could hear. The best part? You actually thought you were getting away with it. She flinched as if he had struck her. Desperate now, she reached across the table, her fingers grasping for his hand. Nathan, please. We can fix this. I'll end it. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't do this here, please. He glanced down at her trembling fingers on his skin, then slowly, deliberately pulled his hand away. Do what, Camilla? Tell the truth? He sat back, exhaling slowly. I think you should take a good look at where you are, at what you've done, and realize that the only person responsible for this moment is you. Her breath hitched, her chest rising and falling rapidly. The confident, manipulative woman he had once known was unraveling before his eyes, and he wasn't about to stop it. The waiter approached their table hesitantly, his smile faltering as he took in Camilla's ghostly expression. Would you like to see the dessert menu? Nathan smiled, the contrast between his composed demeanor and Camilla's distress almost comical. No, thank you. I think my wife has lost her appetite. Camilla looked away, shame creeping up her neck like fire. She had always been the one in control, the one who dictated the terms of their relationship, but now, for the first time, she was powerless. Nathan picked up the last item from the box and slid it across the table. "By the way," he said, watching her intently, "I also got you one more gift." Camilla hesitated before picking it up. The moment her eyes landed on the front page, her breath left her body. Divorce papers, signed, dated, finalized. Her hands shook as she clutched the document, her vision blurring with unshed tears. "Nathan," she croaked, barely able to form words. He stood, adjusting his suit jacket, the weight of years of betrayal lifting from his shoulders. "Happy anniversary, Camilla," he murmured. "I think we're done here." And with that, he walked away, leaving her sitting alone, drowning in the wreckage of her own deception. Nathan walked out of the restaurant, the crisp night air filling his lungs as he loosened his tie. The weight of years of deception had been lifted from his shoulders, yet there was no satisfaction. At least not yet. Camilla's stunned face was still fresh in his mind, her trembling hands clutching the divorce papers, her desperate eyes searching for a lifeline that no longer existed. For years, she had lived two lives, carefully balancing deception with domesticity, believing herself untouchable. But tonight, reality had caught up with her. There was no escaping it now. Nathan slid into his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly as he took a steadying breath. The evidence had been delivered, the papers were signed, but this wasn't the end. No, it was only the beginning of her downfall. He glanced at his phone. A single unread message from his private investigator blinked on the screen. "You were right about Tyler." "He's already running." Nathan smirked. Of course he was. Tyler had always been the type to take what he wanted and disappear at the first sign of trouble. He wasn't in this for love. He was in it for the thrill, for the danger, for the power of stealing another man's wife. But now that the game was up, he was nowhere to be found. Camilla would soon realize that not only had she lost her husband, but she had also lost the very thing she had thrown everything away for. Nathan started the engine, driving away without looking back. Camilla sat frozen at the table, her fingers gripping the edges of the divorce papers as if they might dissolve if she held them tightly enough. Her mind raced, searching for a way out, a way to fix this. Nathan couldn't be serious. He wouldn't just leave her like this, would he? She swallowed hard, her heart hammering against her ribs. Her phone lay face down on the table, abandoned the moment she had opened the box of evidence. Slowly, with shaking hands, she reached for it, unlocking the screen with a swipe. Her fingers hovered over Tyler's name. She hesitated. Then she called. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. She tried again, straight to voicemail. Camilla's breath came in short, panicked bursts. Her hands were slick with sweat as she navigated to their last messages, scrolling frantically. The messages were still there, proof of his affection, his promises, but when she clicked on his profile, the truth hit her like a gut punch. User not found. The color drained from her face. Tyler had blocked her. The realization settled over her like a suffocating fog. She had burned her marriage to the ground for a man who had already disappeared into the night. She had traded stability for a fleeting thrill, and now she had nothing. A soft cough startled her. The waiter stood awkwardly at her side, his polite smile strained. "Madam, would you like me to bring the check?" Camilla blinked, as if just now realizing she was still in the restaurant. Around her, guests whispered, their eyes darting toward her. The air was thick with quiet judgment. She could feel their pity, their amusement. Slowly, she nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, please." As the waiter walked away, she rubbed her temples, the pounding headache threatening to split her skull. She needed to think. She needed a plan. There was still time. She could go home, talk to Nathan, make him see reason. He was emotional, reacting out of anger. He would cool down. He always did, wouldn't it? But as she sat there staring at the crumpled evidence in front of her, a deeper, more terrifying thought crept in. Nathan had waited. He had known for weeks, maybe even months, and had said nothing. He had smiled, kissed her, played the role of the devoted husband, while methodically dismantling her life. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This was planned, cold, calculated. Her hands shook. Nathan wasn't coming back. By the time she arrived home, her thoughts were a tangled mess of desperation and denial. She pushed open the door, stepping into the familiar darkness of their home. No, his home now. Nothing had changed. The furniture was exactly where it had been that morning. The scent of his cologne still lingered in the air. The only thing missing was Nathan himself. She strode toward the bedroom, yanking open drawers, expecting to find his clothes, his belongings, proof that he hadn't really left, but they were gone. Every suit, every tie, every watch, gone. His side of the closet was empty. A choked sob escaped her lips as she stumbled back, her mind spinning. This was real. Nathan had walked away from their life together, and he wasn't looking back. She sank onto the bed, pressing a hand to her mouth as reality crashed down on her. Her marriage was over, and she had no one to blame but herself. Nathan stepped into his hotel suite, tossing his jacket over the armchair. The city skyline stretched before him through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lights flickering like stars. He loosened his tie, exhaling slowly as he pulled out his phone, with one final message to send. He scrolled through his contacts until he found Camilla's name, hesitating for only a moment before typing. Nathan, don't call me, don't text me, my lawyer will be in touch. A beat of silence, then a single reply. Camilla, please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. Nathan stared at the message, his jaw tightening. The same old script, the same old empty promises. He didn't bother responding. Instead, he blocked her number. As he set his phone down and poured himself a glass of whiskey, a sense of finality settled over him. This was not just revenge. This was justice. Camilla had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. Camilla sat alone in the darkened living room, the soft hum of the city outside her window, the only sound accompanying her misery. The wine glass in her trembling hand was untouched, the rich red liquid swirling as she mindlessly tilted it back and forth. The once warm, familiar home now felt hollow, like a stage set that had been abandoned after the final act. Nathan was gone. His side of the bed was cold. His scent had begun to fade from the sheets. His belongings, his watches, his books, his favorite leather jacket, had all disappeared as if he had never lived there at all. The silence was suffocating, a constant reminder of what she had lost. She had tried to reach out, but every call went straight to voicemail. Every message was met with silence. And then, just hours ago, she had seen the final, crushing blow. Nathan had blocked her. He hadn't even given her the chance to explain, to plead, to beg. It was over. Her fingers tightened around her phone as she scrolled through old photos, each image a painful stab to the heart. Their anniversary trip to Italy, their lazy Sundays on the couch, the birthday surprise she had thrown for him last year, all memories now reduced to pixels on a screen. A sob built in her throat, but she swallowed it down. Crying wouldn't change anything. Regret wouldn't bring him back. Desperate for something, anything, she called Tyler again, though she already knew what would happen. The line rang once before going straight to voicemail. He had blocked her too. She let out a bitter laugh, the sound hollow. The man she had risked everything for had vanished the moment things got complicated. No goodbyes, no apologies, just silence. For the first time, she saw herself clearly, not as the powerful, confident woman she had always imagined, but as the fool who had destroyed everything for an illusion. The front door opened suddenly, and for a split second, her heart leapt, irrational hope surging through her. But it wasn't Nathan. It was a courier. "Mrs. Hayes?" the young man asked, looking at her hesitantly. She nodded numbly, barely able to form words. He handed her an envelope, offering a quick nod before disappearing back into the night. With shaking hands, she tore it open, scanning the document inside. The divorce was official. Nathan had wasted no time. Tears blurred her vision as she dropped the paper onto the coffee table, her body sinking into the couch. There was no undoing this, no second chances. Nathan was free, and she was left with nothing but the ruins of her own choices.